This video is going to demonstrate what MandaCLU is and how you can use it. MandaCLU exists to help people learn the characters they need for whatever genre or topic they're interested in. So let's say that I'm reading the China Daily and come across an article on accusations of computer hacking coming out of China. Now, I majored in Chinese, but it's been a long time since any of my classes. Plus, I'm sure there's technical language in here that might be difficult for me to read. So I can copy and paste this article over into MandaCLU. I'm going to exclude the 500 most common characters because I'm confident I already know those. Then I tell it to analyze. This page contains all of the characters that were in the article I wanted to read. It shows how many times it occurs in the article and how common the character is in general, as well as standard information like definition and pronunciation. There's also this column where MandaCLU ranks the characters according to their R-scores. The R-score is generated by an algorithm designed to give higher scores to characters that are important for understanding the article's meaning, and are also more likely to be unfamiliar to the learner. In other words, the characters with high R-scores are the ones you'll most likely need to learn if you want to read the passage. So I'm going to use my personal reading level to demonstrate how this works. For me, as I look at this list, I notice there are quite a few characters that I don't know, and some that I've learned before but could definitely use some review. Also, the far right column shows the context of where the character appears in the passage. With a couple of the characters like number 13, Ju, I've seen it before, but it looks like it's part of the word Zhongqingju, which is a word I don't know. Scrolling down the list, the pattern holds, and with this list of characters I notice that about after number 20, I know the rest of these characters. I can select the characters I want to study one at a time, or I can use this shortcut at the top to just grab the top 20. So MandaCLU gives me a couple options on how I can now study these 20 characters. The first thing I'll show you is how you can make printable flashcards. I can also select the order that flashcards will display. They can either be arranged in the same order as this page, or they can be arranged in the order of when they first appear in the article. I'm going to select the second option, and then I click Print Flashcards. This option is for those who still prefer to have something tangible to study that they can take with them. It's likely to be used less and less in the future as I plan to take this mobile, but for right now, it's still used pretty regularly. This page contains all of the characters I just selected in tables that I can print out. The tables are made to fit 10 characters on a page. I can cut these out, and they're made to take advantage of the default margins. So I can fold it down this line, and even though it looks like this side is wider than that side, once I have the margin over here, they're actually about the same width if I fold down that line. Now let's go back, and I'm going to show you some of the online activities that are available to memorize the 20 characters I have selected. I'm going to switch this back so the characters are ordered by their R-scores. And now we're going to see the online activities. The 5 activities are here on the left, and we start off with the flashcards. Each flashcard has 2 sides. This one has the character I'm studying, as well as the traditional version of the character, and its radical. This number here shows how common this character is in general. If I want to learn the stroke order, I can click here, and see an animation courtesy of Arch Chinese. These animations also let you hear the pronunciation for the character. When I'm done with this side, to flip this card over, I can click Flip, or I can click directly on the card. This side of the card has the pronunciation, definition, and down below that it has example words. These example words are taken directly from the article I'm trying to learn to read. So I can move through the flashcards, memorizing the character and its info. And MandaCLU organizes my characters in sets of 10. So when I get to character 10, it just goes back to 1, so I can start testing my memory. Sometimes, when memorizing characters, you may have noticed you could remember a character not because you actually memorized it, but because as you moved through your list, everything was in the same order and you had memorized the order. That won't do you much good when you're reading the Chinese and that character turns up. So this option down here shuffles all the characters in the set so you can make sure that you are learning the characters and not the order. Eventually, when I'm ready to move on to the next set, I can either click the set at the top on the right, or I can just click Next Set. Once I'm in the next set, the navigation is still the same. Now this character here is the one I mentioned earlier that I knew, but I didn't know the context it was in. When I flip it over, I can see all the words in the passage that use this character. I mentioned before that I didn't know what Zhongqingju was, but now I see that it's the CIA. At any time in this process, I can move on to any of the activities. I could have stayed in the first set of 10 characters and ran them through all of the activities, or I could run all the characters through the flashcards before moving on to the next activity. I'm going to show you the matching activity now, and I'll show you that using the first set. With flashcards, I can test myself, but with the rest of these activities, MandaCLU is now testing me, and the tests are designed to start out easy and get progressively more difficult. If you've ever taken a test, I don't need to explain to you why matching is the easy way to start. In addition to the other features that make matching easy, I also have the pronunciation and definition already paired up. Half of the work is done for me, so I just need to remember which character goes with which pronunciation definition pair. I'm not going to make you sit here as I try to get them all right, so I'll go through this quickly, marking random answers and see how I did. If I didn't get them all right, it tells me how I did and suggests I return to try again. When I return, the order has been scrambled, but the few that I got right are already correctly marked for me. When I do get them all right, it'll suggest that I move on to the next set, but instead, let's look at the next activity, multiple choice. This is a bit harder than matching because the pronunciation and definition are now decoupled and I have to remember them separately. Plus, I can't use the process of elimination like I would with matching. And these distractors are all taken from the other characters that I'm studying. So if I get one right and one wrong, MandaCLU provides feedback and returns me to the question to try again. The one I got right is still marked correct, and now I can try again with the one I got wrong. Now that I got them both right, I can move on to the next character. Sidebar here, the user always has complete control, so I can click down here to move on if I want to. MandaCLU doesn't control me, it just suggests. Once I've worked through the multiple choice questions, the next two activities are designed to help me see characters as part of a context that includes words and phrases. With the fill in the word activity, MandaCLU grabs a 2+ character word from the passage I want to read and presents it to me with a character missing. The missing character is one of the characters I've been studying. The distractors are once again from the article I want to read. Also, MandaCLU is careful to try and make sure that none of the distractors could fill in the blank to make a real word. The feedback process is the same, where if I get it wrong, it tells me and returns me to try again. Once I get it correct, MandaCLU also gives me the full pronunciation and definition for the word I just completed before moving me on to the next word. The final activity then takes words and puts them in the context of full phrases and sentences. It functions much like the previous activity. The phrases are all from the passage I want to read, and I have to choose which of the words that I've studied fit in the blank. At the completion of all 5 of these activities, I'm going to be a lot better prepared to read the original article, and I'll likely remember these characters for a lot longer than if I used one of the available tools out there that allows me to mouse over an unfamiliar character and instantly get the definition and pronunciation. These tools are meant to help you read without learning the characters. MandaCLU, on the other hand, is built to help you learn the characters so you can read on your own. Now there's another thing I want to show you. Let's jump back to that page where I selected the characters I wanted to study. Let's pretend I'm someone who knows fewer Chinese characters than I actually do. I'm going to exclude the 200 most common. Last time I excluded the 500 most common. Now let's say as I look over this list, I realize I hardly know any of the 174 characters here. This means that this passage is pretty far above my reading level. MandaCLU has an additional feature that is meant to help me in this case. Instead of sorting by R-score, I can sort by frequency. Since I don't know hardly any of the characters in this article, I might as well start with the characters that show up the most and get the most bang for my buck. So now let's say I select the top 20 characters on this organized list. These 20 characters combined show up 107 times in this passage, and the passage has a total of 614 characters.
This means that supposing I already know all 200 of the most basic characters I excluded earlier, before I start studying with MandaCLU, I can only read about 51% of those 614 characters in the article. Once I've studied those top 20 on the frequency list, I'll be able to read about 83% of the article. That is a big improvement.
So, to sum this up, if an article is just a bit above your reading level, the R score is the way to go. If it's a lot higher than your reading level, try organizing by frequency. Now before I finish, I have one more tip I want to show you with MandaCLU. Sometimes you may just want to learn vocabulary about a particular topic, and you don't necessarily have an article you want to learn to read. I've discovered that MandaCLU and Wikipedia actually work really well together for this goal. Let's imagine a world where I've just been hired by the company BIC to manage some of their mechanical pencil manufacturing plants in China, and they put me on the account because they know I speak Chinese. Truth be told, I have no idea if BIC manufactures mechanical pencils in China, but we're imagining here. If your Chinese classes were like mine, you most likely didn't have any modules where you learned vocab related to mechanical pencils. But if you go find Wikipedia's article on mechanical pencils, and switch the language to Chinese, and then paste that article into MandaCLU, you'll notice that this list contains a lot of good vocab for talking about mechanical pencils. Words like core, lead, spring, and carbon. This concludes my demonstration of MandaCLU and how you can use it. If you have any feedback, please send it my way. Nearly every page has a link to a form where you can report any bugs you found or send any other feedback you may have. 祝你好运!